Hello, this is Scott Jentz. Welcome to Sandbox Stories.
Hello, welcome to the Sandbox Story, which is an interview with someone who I think has stories that deserve to be told. She's not from the eye care field, but she's pursuing a life in healthcare. Brittany Ammerman is a driven, intelligent, and very gifted person who I think you'll be glad to get to know. We've known each other for about 9 years, having met by complete chance at a couple of fundraising events for gynecologic oncology right after my mom passed away from ovarian cancer. And I can't wait to get into your interesting stories and get to know you once again. Welcome to Sandbox Stories, Brittany Ammerman.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great, and I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You grew up playing hockey, and then you played collegiately here at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I'd like to have you tell people what it's like to play high-level college hockey, and of course, to win a national championship.
I think it's an experience like no other. A lot recently I've been reflecting on like athletics and what it's given me at this point in my life. And I did not realize how much it would follow me as I'm getting ready to apply for my residency in medical school. So, but going back to, I was talking today in the operating room, actually, someone mentioned something about high school. And I was like, I went to a hockey school in Vermont, and the surgeon was like, "You did what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I basically just like got tutored and played hockey for 3 years, and then I went to the University of Wisconsin." And people are always blown away that you'll be like, "Oh, I played ice hockey in college," and you're usually like, "All right, where'd you play?" And then when you say University of Wisconsin, everyone kind of like takes a step back, and then they ask if you're from Wisconsin, and then when you say no, I'm from Northern New Jersey, you get kind of like spun around, and then everyone's like, "Well, did you win a national championship?" And I'm like, "Of course I did." And like now you're at a point where you can totally own it. And it's not something that everyone even gets a chance to play in the Frozen Four and gets a chance to play in a national championship. And I thankfully won my freshman year in 2011, played a national championship game my sophomore year, and then lost 2 more times in the Frozen Four, all to Minnesota. So we are a little bitter about it to this day. But yeah, I just think it's something that not many people get an opportunity to even try to accomplish and play at such a high level. And then now everything that it's given me in life and my career, it's like honestly incredible. I never thought a lot of things would come from just being so invested in a sport that I ended up loving so much.
Is it because of the conversations and the way it gives you a chance to reflect, or the way people sort of look at you, or is there really more to it? Just the thought about all the hours, both on the ice and off. Like, is it a little both? How does it enrich your life today?
Yeah, I think it's definitely both. I think, it's definitely at this point, like, I guess you could say a good way to network with people. It gives you a topic to talk about. Often it's a way to like open up about other parts of your life by using that avenue of sports and whatnot. But I think more so on like a more granular level right now, it's the amount of time that I dedicated to that sport alone. My mom and I were talking about it kind of recently. My sister Brooke, who also played at Wisconsin, and we do hockey camps every summer. We've done it since we both finished playing at Wisconsin for girls in New Jersey. And, do we make a nice dime on running hockey camps and giving lessons? Yes, that's not why we do it. But my mom was making a point of like, well, you kind of deserve that other end of it. You spent 18 years of your life, dedicated to a sport. Like you started playing when you were 5, and it just took off from there. You didn't go to a lot of people's like bar and bat mitzvahs growing up because you were at hockey tournaments. You didn't go to prom in high school because you didn't really go to a real high school. You sacrificed a lot of things, and your friends were in athletics and not in your high school. And, so I started kind of thinking about that. And then now that I'm getting ready to apply for orthopedic surgery residency, there are a lot of crossovers between being an athlete and what's going to need to be accomplished and focused on when I'm an orthopedic surgery attending. and a resident. And it's a lot of things that everyone's always like, oh yeah, like all former athletes go into orthopedic surgery. And now that I'm getting ready to apply for it, and you have to say, why do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? It's not just because I was a jock and still am. It's more so like there's a team aspect to it. There's, you're in the operating room and you have to focus on something, and you have to be prepared and you have to know what's coming at you. And that's what playing at a very high level was like. Like you had to prepare all summer. You had to get in shape. You had to be focused. You had to know the other team you were playing. You had to scout. You had to be able to work with your line mates. You had to be able to communicate. So there's just a lot of things that sports and athletics in general just keeps kind of rising back up now that I'm at this point in my life.
And the other conversation starter that comes from playing at Wisconsin and the women's hockey team is our coach, Mark Johnson, who is your coach. He was on the 1980 men's Olympic hockey team that beat the Russians and then went on to win gold after that. And that's called the Miracle on Ice. Hockey people know it. What did you learn from him as a person?
I think first and foremost, he's probably one of the most humble people you'll ever encounter. You would never know that he was part of that team, let alone arguably the most important part of that team, the goal scorer. And so, just at baseline, he was just always very humble. And even when our teams were very good at Wisconsin and he was doing press conferences and stuff, he was always so even keeled. And it was always a we mentality. And I think that is something that he instilled in all of us. And as we leave Wisconsin, I would like to say that almost all of us are very humble people. And that's just kind of the culture that he ingrained in us. And then also he has a very good perspective on life. Hockey was important. And he also realized that we weren't all going to go to the NHL because we didn't have a chance to. We weren't going to make a living going to the NHL. We were going to have to do other things in life, and we were going to have to grow up, and we were going to want to have families. And so he treated all of us like part of his family, him and his wife. It was always an open door. And I think just that family aspect made us all very close, and a lot of us still talk now. And I think that's just the kind of human being he is. Everyone's kind of part of family at Wisconsin Hockey.
Well, and talking about family, you have a family that's very tight and cohesive. You're one of 4 girls in your family. As you said, your sister played at Wisconsin. That had to be cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's actually kind of funny, not to go on a tangent, but someone said, how'd you end up at Wisconsin? And I was like, well, it was mostly, I had scholarship offers to all the schools, and I just picked the top 3 I wanted to go to, which ended up being Wisconsin, Minnesota, Boston College at the time. And I originally had all the Ivy Leagues on there because I knew I was going to probably go to medical school. And my dad was like, no, you got to take them off. And I was like, I just don't understand. Why do they have to come off? And he's like, we're not going to qualify for enough financial aid so if you want to pay to go to Harvard, they have to come off. And now I'm like, thank God they came off because that would have been a lot of debt. But when I was deciding where to go to school, I kind of went through a funk. Brooke was 2 years older than me, and she was in her freshman year at Wisconsin. And Brooke she's just very naturally gifted, and we're very different, both on the ice and just in life. We're the best of friends, but very different personalities. She's go with the flow, and I'm type A, and I always need a 5-year plan, and I'm just crazy. And she's just kind of yeah, whatever happens. And that was what it was like with hockey too. For her to do something, I had to do it 10,000 times to do it half as good as her. And I was kind of at a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to follow in her footsteps anymore. I'm getting kind of tired of it. And I was 15 or whatever. And I visited Boston College, and it's 4 hours from home. It's Boston College, this glorified prep school type of place. Everyone loves it. And I was just in a mood, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to Boston College. And my dad was like, no, you're not. In 5 days, you're flying to Madison, Wisconsin. And I was like, yeah, but I love Boston College, and the coaches are telling me everything I want to hear. You're going to start right away. You're going to be on the power play. What 15-year-old doesn't want to hear that? And my dad's like, just please, don't make any decisions. Just wait 5 days. So, we left Boston College. I was grumpy about it. Got on the flight to Madison, and I was in my brain, there's no way I'm going to like this place. I'm going to do everything to dislike it. I'm flying into Madison. I'd never been to the state of Wisconsin, and I'm just looking out, and there's just like fields, and like this place is terrible. And I landed, and I was like, no, like, this isn't for me. Like, I just saw cornfields everywhere. And my other sister Megan came on the trip as well with my parents. We were going to see Brooke play that weekend. We drive into Madison, and like, you know, you see the Capitol, and I'm like, oh no, I really like it here. And then like we start like the tour and stuff, and I'm just being like completely silent, like I'm like poker face, like I'm refusing to tell anyone what's going on in my mind. And my mom's there, and she's like, you're spinning wheels in your head. I'm like, I don't like it. Like, I don't like it, you know? And like, I came up with every excuse, like the campus is too big, I'm never gonna figure it out. And my sister was like, there are 3 roads you have to figure out. One goes this way, one goes this way, and one goes both ways. And I was like, that's too complicated. Boston College is just a small campus. It's fine. And everyone was like, pros and cons list, whatever. And then I watched their first game that night and was like, wow, this is kind of impressive. They were playing in the Colt Center still. Like, the lower bowl was filled. Like, everyone was enthusiastic about it. The team was awesome. Like, I knew all the girls already because I had visited Brooke, like, at other tournaments and stuff. And so I was like, okay. And then I got offered the scholarship the next night, and I just sat there and was like,
you're playing a straight face.
Like, I didn't say anything. My dad was like, you could see smoke coming out of his ears. Like, Mark Johnson's offering you a scholarship, and you're just going to sit there and say, like, I don't know. And so finally my mom was like, just give her like a couple weeks. Is that okay? And Coach Johnson, of course, even feels like, it's fine. I understand. Big decision. We walk out of that room up into the stands for warm-ups, and I sit down next to my mom, and I look at her, I go, I want to go to school here. And she was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I was like, well, I just had this feeling just now. And she was like, you didn't have 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, well, I sat down, and then I realized like what I just did. And she's like, well, now you have to go tell him. So I like tapped my dad on the shoulder, like, Dad, I want to go to school here. And he was like, what? Like, stop talking to me. You don't know what you're saying. And I was like, how do I do that? Do I just tell someone? And he literally was like, you've got to be kidding me. You have to go down there now and tell them. And so I got over myself, and I think it's the best decision I've ever made. Of course, like, so much has come out of it, but that allowed Brooke and I to end up playing together for 2 years. And we were roommates she was there an extra year after she finished playing. So we were roommates for 2 other years. And we were line mates for a little while, which was hit or miss depending on the day. You know, like, you're always the little sister. So, and like I said, she was very good. She was the goal scorer. So, but yeah, we won a national championship. We played Boston College in the semifinals that year. So my whole family was like, thank God, you know, that you were here and not at Boston College. And I was like, yeah, but you would have been rooting for me. Brooke had already won a national championship. Like, you know, but so we played Boston College, and then we beat Boston University. And like, that's something Brooke and I, you know, can always share, is that like, we won a national championship together. And like, that was like one of the best years of our life. Like, that team was just amazing. Like, Megan Duggan was our captain, and there's a reason why, you know, she went on to captain the Olympic team. And Brooke and I have a lot of good memories from college in general. That, like, you know, you don't get to spend that amount of time with your sister, like, in such like a, you know, like, transformative time in your life. So,
and
cool.
Your 2 older sisters have brought all these nieces and nephews into your life. You enjoy time with them?
Yeah. So my oldest sister, Christine's 15 years older than me, and she's got 3 kids, and her oldest son is 15 years younger than me. So it's kind of like having a little brother. And then there's, you know, I have a niece and another nephew from her. And then my sister Megan has 2 more kids, Jack and Brady, and Jack's my godson. And then Brooke now has 2 kids. She has 2 boys. And out of all of them, only one plays ice hockey right now. But I'm sure Brooke's kids will end up playing, but the others all play lacrosse and field hockey, and big athletic family. So all of them are on the weekends going 700 different places. And now that I've had a little bit of downtime recently after taking my boards and stuff, I've gotten home to see them and spend more time getting to some of their games and stuff. And so it's fun to watch them grow up, and like, they're starting to realize too, a little bit, like Luke, the oldest one, he's starting to realize like, he's probably going to play lacrosse in college, and he's starting to talk about, you know, college athletics. And I think he's starting to realize that like Brooke and I played at a really elite level. But it's like kind of weird when you grew up with it. Like, he was at those national championship games. So it's like, not, you know, it doesn't faze him, but it is fun to like see him to start like go through this process too.
And we were fortunate enough to meet your parents, and your mom was a nurse and your dad was a school administrator. And from the stories you've told, they've guided you well, and you're fortunate that they're healthy and well. And are they fine? And what do you have to say about them?
They're great. I mean, COVID, I think in general is a whole nother topic, and it was hard for a lot of people. They're both retired now, which was great because they were spending a lot of time with their grandkids. And then COVID happened, and that was hard because they didn't, it was like a whole year of not really seeing everyone. But thankfully, our whole family stayed healthy, and we've been able to get together this spring again. But yeah, my parents are good. My mom comes and visits often to Hershey, sometimes unannounced, which is good and bad. But most recently, I was inducted into the Gold Humanism Honor Society, which is something that when you become a rising fourth year med student, your school can nominate you for. And it's just like you're someone who focuses on like patient centered medicine, and you're like a good humanistic practicing student doctor. And myself and one of my best friends, who's about to be my roommate, we got inducted into this honor society, and they were doing a virtual ceremony like on a Thursday night. And I sent it to my family, and I was like, if you guys want to log on, like, I don't really know if I'm doing anything, but like, this is cool. Like, just let me know. And my mom called me that morning or texted me at like 7 a.m, was just like, what are you and your friend Katie going to do tonight? Like, are you going to have drinks? Are you going to go get dinner, like to celebrate being inducted in this honor society? And I was like, no, I mean, Katie will come over and we'll like watch it. And then, we'll just like go about our lives. And my mom was like, I guess she ended up being like, screw this. Like, I'm not going to go down to our shore home today. I'm just going to drive to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And at 3 p.m., she calls me and she's like, I'm outside your apartment and I'm here for the ceremony and I'm taking you and Katie out to dinner. And so she was like, this is the best. I'm a retired nurse, and I come and I hang out with you and your friends and take you out to dinner, and I get to hear all the stories that you guys have being on your rotations. And she's like, I always loved my work and I love being in the hospital, and as happy as I am retired, it's really fun to be able to hear like how much you all enjoy being in the hospital. So my mom finds a lot of joy in what I'm doing right now. And she really loves to like hear all these stories that we have going on here. Yeah.
And you over this course of your educational process are attending med school at Penn State University, you're in Hershey. Was it your mom that influenced you, or something else that influenced you to pursue medicine and become a doctor?
I think my mom was probably like under the surface part of it. Like when I was in high school and like middle school, I would go with her. She worked nights her entire career to be able to stay up during the day and take care of us. And there'd be some nights that I'd go with her. She was a NICU nurse most recently. I think when I was in middle school, she became a NICU nurse after being like a night supervising nurse. And I would go with her every once in a while and see the NICU babies, because like there was just something about like being in the hospital that I liked, and I knew that like I was going to do something that involved like biology and anatomy and like the human body. But it wasn't at that point where I was like, my mom's a nurse and I want to become a doctor because of that. But I do think like her interest in the medical field probably transcended down to me in some ways. And then I just like in high school, I just really like, I guess I felt like I was smart enough to do something on that level. And I just really liked anatomy. Like I loved the human body. I think part of it was like I was becoming an elite athlete, and I was like shocked at what the musculoskeletal system could do and like what a human body could do on just an athletic level. So I was like dabbling in medical school as a possibility when I was in high school, in physical therapy and physician assistant school, because my mom did say, just dabble in like all of those, because medical school is a big commitment and there are other routes to get, depending on what you want out of it. So I shadowed like all of those, and for whatever reason, I just was like, I need to be a physician. And I didn't know if I was going to be a surgeon or not. Like at that point, I just wanted to be a physician. And so that's kind of how it started. And then when I got to the University of Wisconsin, I was linked up with Dr. Lisa Barrelette, who's a gynecologic oncologist. And that was through one of our team physicians at Wisconsin. I think he was the sports medicine fellow with us at the time. And I said to him, like, I'm really interested in women's health and like going into medical school. Do you know anyone that I could shadow here? And he was like, yeah, like Lisa Barrelette's like an awesome human. She's like just recently started her practice. Like, why don't you just go hang out with her? I think Lisa Barrelette thought I'd hang out with her for like a Monday for like a few hours and never show up again. I always joke with her because I showed up and then I showed up every Monday for a year or more, I think. And I just loved like watching her interact with patients and the way that she just like communicated with them and would draw in like the basic sciences in medicine and the humanistic part of it, and like treating patients as if they're her own family, and she was making a difference. And I liked also the surgery part of what she was doing. And so she was very influential when I was in undergrad. I think she was the person who I was like, when I spent that amount of time with her, that's when I was like, all right, this is what we're doing. Like, we're going to try to go to medical school. And then it was a long road to get to where we are today.
And you said it's a slog. I mean, ours, it's everything it's made out to be. Those of us in optometry certainly put in some time, but it's not like going to med school and getting ready for your residency. And it's expensive. Optometry is $250,000 for the postgraduate work. Do you have a sense of what it's going to cost to have gone to medical school? Not that it's all coming out of your pocket, but do you have a sense of what it's going to cost?
So I think like the national average is around 250,000, like of loans when you get out of there, and then you defer most of the time throughout residency. I think for me, it's looking at it'll end up being like over 300,000 easily, maybe more like 350. Because Penn State, it's probably middle of the road. When I say middle of the road, it's like $53,000 in tuition a year, and that's without living. And so there's that, and then you get like a grace period when you graduate. I think it's 6 months, and then you start residency. And depending on where you'd like to go to residency, you might have to take out more loans. You might not really be able to pay that much, and because residents, it's essentially government paid. You get paid the same amount no matter where in the country you're working. So if you're in New York City versus even like a Madison or a Hershey, Pennsylvania, like the difference in cost of living is an exponential difference. So I think it'll end up being a few $100,000. And like I said before, it's an investment in time and money. And fortunately, I did not have any debt before this. I went on to University of Wisconsin on a scholarship. And then I got my master's, but I paid for my master's on my own because I had worked for a year before getting my master's. I was a surgical sales rep for Don Joy in orthopedics in Madison for a year. And then I was doing hockey lessons and hockey camps like up the wazoo when I was in my master's, because I was like, I am not paying for this with any loan money. But like I said, it was a hard road. Like I graduated Wisconsin and I applied to medical school, and I wasn't ready to apply. Like I didn't have the best advice in applying. Applying to medical school is a really hard process. It's a whole year of your life. It's really expensive. It's time consuming, and I applied, and my MCAT score at that time just wasn't great, and I didn't get any interviews. So I kind of took a step back. That's when I was a sales rep and was like, I still want to do this. I'm not going to be deferred from this. So I went and got my master's at Rutgers in biomedical sciences, and then I geared up to apply again. I took the MCAT again. And then the year that I applied, I was a research assistant in New York City, and luckily got a few interviews and then got accepted. So when I got to Penn State, like I was like, we're in it to win it here. Like we've made it this far. Like we're going to do it big.
That's awesome. And how did you come to orthopedic surgery? My guess is, having spent some time understanding muscles and bones, and sometimes not only how they work, but how they don't work well together, you got influenced that way?
Yeah, I think most elite athletes at some point have an injury that requires a surgery. And I had both of my hips scoped. I had torn labrums with cam lesions, which are essentially like bony spurs. When I was, I guess it was my senior year of high school, I had one done, and then my sophomore year at Wisconsin, I had the other one done. So I had that experience, and then I had injuries along the way. But like I said, like I was kind of all over the place before I started medical school with what I intended to do as a physician someday. I liked women's health. I liked gynecologic oncology. Orthopedics was always on the radar because everyone was always like, oh, you're an elite athlete. Like orthopedics is for you. Sports medicine in a primary care setting was also part of it. So I just was like, I don't know, like before when I was applying to medical school, I actually, if you talked to me, I probably was like, I'm going to be a gynecologist or do gyn-onc. And that was before I knew anything about the obstetrics part of OB-GYN. But, and then the year before I started medical school, when I was applying, I got this really cool position as a research assistant at a hospital for special surgery in New York City in the Women's Sports Med Center. And the way that I got the position was I went online, and I knew that this Women's Sports Med Center existed because at Hospital for Special Surgery is where I had my hip scopes done. And I had heard about this Women's Sports Med Center, so I went online when I needed a job, and I was like, of course, they do research. They need a research assistant. There was no open position for a research assistant at the Women's Sports Med Center, but I was like, it's not going to stop me. So I emailed their medical director, Dr. Lisa Callahan, and I was just like, hey, like, this is my name. I played hockey at Wisconsin. I'm trying to go to medical school. Like, here's a little bit more about me. Like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I'm interested in women's health. It'd be really cool to be your research assistant. Do you have any openings, or is there anything that, I can do for Women's Sports Med Center? And she replied to me and was like, set up a meeting, essentially an interview. I guess she liked me a lot. She thought I had a lot of confidence, just like cold email her and be like, do you have a position? And then they made a position for me, and I spent the year as their research assistant. And it's like a bunch of female physicians in primary care sports medicine and orthopedic sports medicine, they love to mentor. Sports medicine as a field in general doesn't have a lot of females, and then orthopedic surgery in general, I think, has like 6% of practicing attendings are females. So they are like excited when they get a female research assistant, let alone one that was like an elite athlete at some point. And it was just the coolest year. Like, I did their research, and I learned a lot about research and clinical research, and that's something I'm going to want to keep doing in my career. And then I got to spend time in clinic and spend time in the operating room and see primary care sports medicine versus orthopedic surgery sports medicine. And so when I started medical school, that was basically where I was at. I was like, we're either going to do either non-operative or orthopedic surgery sports medicine. And I realized I could do women's health within sports medicine and someday take care of female athletes if I want to. And then I got to my third year rotations and just waited to see how much I liked the operating room and what other places I could see myself practicing as a resident. And it just so happened orthopedic surgery was like my favorite rotation by far, followed by vascular surgery because I was in the operating room and like hands deep in anatomy. And then I still loved primary care sports medicine, but I just felt like I needed to be hands-on and actually fixing things. So that's kind of how we got to this point right now.
Just a quick take. How was the ophthalmology rotation?
I did not do ophthalmology, but my best friend Katie, who I was talking about earlier, is pursuing ophthalmology.
Okay.
And I say to her all the time, thank God there are people like you in the world, because I can't do the eyes. I can't. I don't understand them. I tried. I don't understand them. And I could not operate on them. So thank God for other people.
And I just want to point out the exception to the rule. My femoral anterior impingement, my cam lesions that caused me to have a hip replacement puts me in the elite athlete category, according to what you're telling me. So I never scratched that surface, but it makes me feel better. So yeah, you talked about women's health. You really did learn a lot about, that passion you had while you're here at Wisconsin. You ended up doing a trip to Africa while you were here in college that impacted your life. And I'd like you to tell us about it.
Yeah. So this is another thing that I just it always comes up in conversation at some point, and I'm still shocked that it happened. So I had redshirted my junior year at Wisconsin because of a concussion that was just terrible. It was my third or fourth really bad one, and it was 9 months of just headaches and double vision, and no one could really get to the bottom of it. And there was a lot of talk of never playing the sport again. And as much as my mom constantly said to all of us in my family, but mostly Brooke and I, because we were playing hockey for essentially a living and a scholarship, she's always there's more to life than hockey, and at some point it's going to run out, and you can coach and give back, or there's got to be other things, and it might run out sooner than you hoped or you planned, and injury is a real thing. And it was the same thing when we were deciding where to go to school. You had to find a place that when you got there, it was the campus that you loved, and you could see yourself there as a student and not an athlete, because you didn't know if a coach was going to leave someday, or if you were going to get hurt, or whatever would happen. So fortunately, even though I was not well, I was like very depressed during this time. I was like having these like very introspective thoughts of like, what am I going to do if I can't play hockey? Like that is a whole identity to me. But I know like I'm confident in myself, and I know I have these other talents and another way I can give back to the world. And how can I use what I've learned as a hockey player so far at the age of 21 to like change the world in some way or benefit other people. And at the same time, like I was considering medical school, and I was like, I need to go give back to like people somewhere else and like see what it's like to not live in Wisconsin or New Jersey and like have, a very nice life. And so I applied on a whim. I was a women's studies major at Wisconsin to this, and I was global health certificate or minor, I guess you could say. And you had to do like a global health outreach thing at some point. So I applied for this one that everyone talked about. They were like, if you're in women's studies and you're in global health and you want to go to Africa, Araceli Alonso is like the best professor ever. And she does this trip called Health by Motorbike, and she takes only 12 students a year. And they go for like a little over a month, and you do community outreach in like the sticks of rural Kenya on the southeastern coast, and like you bond with these women and like you live with them and like you become a part of their community. And the way that she goes about it is like so phenomenal, and it will change your life. But you have to apply like multiple years in a row because everyone wants to do it. So I was like, whatever, okay, I'll apply this year, and I probably won't get it. And then I'm going to have to, hopefully, maybe there's a shot of me playing hockey again, and then I'll just train and I'll try again next year. So I applied, and then it was either I was going to do this or I was going to go to Australia and like save sea turtles. I think that was my backup plan.
Okay.
So that's the point we're at. And I got accepted. Like Araceli Alonso liked my application and was like, you're one of the 12. And so I was like, all right, I guess this is what we're going to do. At the same time, I was like also starting to feel better. I had gone to different doctors and like had started to figure out why I was having double vision, and my headaches were going away, and it was sounding like I was going to be able to play again in the fall. So then I had another dilemma, which was I had to tell Coach Johnson that I was going to Kenya for 5 weeks when I should be training for our season. And he said to me, that's great, as long as you come back in shape. And I was like, all right, we're going to take some P90X with us and a jump rope, and we're going to make this work. But it only lasted 2 days because it was like 100 degrees at 5 a.m. and 120 degrees by 10 a.m. And there was just no working out. And also, sadly, it's not like you can just, go for a run
right
in rural southeastern Kenya, like in a village. Like it's just not right to do that when women are walking hours a day for water. And it just also, for other reasons, wasn't safe. So got to a point where I was like, well, I got to do something active. How am I going to do this? And a guy was selling soccer balls on the side of the road, and we were in a bus going to our next place. And I just rolled down my window, and I think I paid like $5. I was like, you know what? I'll take the soccer ball. We're going to be running health clinics. There'll be kids that are waiting, and I'll just go run around with them and play soccer. And that'll be the exercise, and we'll figure it out on the back end. And I took the soccer ball out, and these women that we were doing the outreach with, they're 30 to 50 years old. They have a bunch of kids. They get like no time for themselves because they're doing everything domestically while their husbands are working. And the kids started to play, and the women were like, "Nuh-uh, you're not playing. We're going to play." And they literally took the ball from the kids, and these women started a pickup game. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I was playing with them. I was teaching them the rules. They played till the sun went down. I think the ball deflated, and they just kept playing. And it happened like a couple times over the month that we were there. And then when Araceli leaves each year to plan her next trip back the following year, she always says, hey, what do you guys want in the curriculum next year that the students from Wisconsin will educate you on? And like for perspective, the year before I went, when it ended, they had said, can you give us some tips on like how to combat domestic violence at home? And like, this is what's happening to us. So she's like gearing up for something like kind of on that level. And they're like, we want to play soccer. And she was like, what? And they were like, Britt taught us how to play soccer, and women in Mexico play soccer, and the men here don't even play soccer, and we want to play soccer. Like, we want a soccer league. So Araceli like thought about it and then called me when she was still there, and I was already back in Wisconsin. And she's like, Britt, I don't know anything about sports. You're the one who brought the soccer ball. You should do whatever you want to do with this. Like, there are 2 of the 7 villages that are like, we want to play. And so I sat on it for like months, and I was like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, I need $5,000 because they're going to need all of the supplies. They're going to need gear, need jerseys, because why not? And I was like, all right, like I'll do a t-shirt fundraiser online, like customink.com. I'll get to like $4,000, $5,000. We'll have this game. And then in my head, I was like, and it'll be a great day for them. They'll love it. And then they'll move on. And, it was a good day. That was not the case. The game happened. There were 1,000 people at the game. Like, their entire villages came out. Their husbands came to the game. These 2 villages played. And then the other 5 villages were like, well, we want to play, and we want to play monthly, and we want to practice every other week. And like, we want a tournament every year. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I need more than $5,000. So at that point, that was 2014. I then was like, talking to my mom, I was like, Mom, like I need more than $5,000, but I don't even know, like, what does a person do? And like, I think this is going to become like a nonprofit, like a 501c3. Like, this is a lot. And so we established the Nikambuke Soccer League, and it became an official, nonprofit organization. And then my mom said, why don't you email like Julie Foudy and Mia Hamm from that 1999 World Cup team?
Yeah, just shoot high. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're super influential. I guess this is where I got it when I emailed Dr. Lisa Callahan, because I'd done it before.
Yep.
And my mom was like, what's going to happen? They ignore you? Like, okay. So I was like, all right. So I started Googling, and they all have charities. And like Mia Hamm has a charity. And I emailed the like general email to her. And they wrote back, and they're like, we have a grant for $1,000. Like, you're competitive for it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, only need $49,000 more. But like Mia Hamm's charity says like I'm worthy of it. And I emailed Julie Foudy's Leadership Academy. And Julie Foudy herself 2 days later emailed me. Like, not from the Julie Foudy email. Like, it was Julie Foudy's email, and it was, hey, crazy lady, this is awesome. Here's my cell phone. Text me. We'll call you tomorrow. And I was like, I think Julie Foudy's calling me tomorrow, and she now has my cell phone number. And I sent this email that was like the same thing, like, hi, my name is Brittany Ammerman. I play hockey in Wisconsin. Like, here's this cool video of what I did in Kenya last year, and like the women are really happy about it, and it's all about them. Like, this is what they want. They keep asking me, and I'm just trying to get them what they need. Like, I have not suggested anything. They come to me with ideas. And Julie Foudy called me and then helped me raise almost $50,000 through like crowdsourcing that year. Did a Sports Center featured piece on me, like when we were about to go to the Frozen Four. It got a ton of airtime, hooked us up with Nike for like jerseys, all this stuff. We funded 7 villages, and it just like took off from there. We had a big tournament that year in 2015 with all the villages, and then now it's 2021, and there are 13 villages, and they practice every other week. They play once a month. There's been a Nikambuke World Cup every year, except this past year due to COVID. And it's just turned into this like very serendipitous but crazy cool organization that I never thought it would come to. And it has, which I really love at this point, like health initiatives as its basis. Like clean water is a big deal. We help them get water tanks so they're not 8 to 10 hours being spent walking for water. Instead, they can spend that playing soccer and like working on fitness, and that's really good for diabetes and hypertension and obesity, which are all big problems there. It's like really big on social cohesion and bringing tribal villages together, which I was like, did not think sport in the form of what I have now helped create that would happen. We've been able to publish a bunch of research on it more recently. Within the past 2 years, we got a $100,000 private grant to do a research study when I was starting medical school on the ground to say like, hey, this is how sport is helping these women emotionally and physically with their well-being. And now it's published in journals, like international journals, saying like, this is a grassroots level thing that can be implemented in other parts of the world to help with X, Y, and Z. And here's the data to provide and back that up. So it's become just like I don't know, like I said, it's just like a crazy thing that I've never expected. I still am shocked, like when people ask me about it, and I'm like, well, that was 8 years ago now that it just kind of like happened, and I've had really great support systems and a really good group of board members to like help me while I'm busy in medical school. And people just love it. Like they love what has come of it, and it's cool. It's sports and it's health and it's women's empowerment. It's all the things that I love. And I think the coolest thing about it is I don't do a lot. Like I don't do a lot for what like these women ask me. They come up with the ideas, and that's something that I didn't even have to explicitly state. It's just kind of an underwritten thing that if they come up with an idea and they send it to me, I'll do the work to get them the funds, but I'll never impose on them what I think should be done. And if they ask for my opinion or my board's opinion, we can have a conversation about it. But they know that if there's something they want, they come to me, whether it's via FaceTime or just a message, and they say, this is what we're thinking about. And if they give me good reasons and kind of like a business plan now, then I can consider it and find a way to get them the means to do what they want to do. And the most recent one is they want only women coaching them. Right now we have a male coach, and they want it to be all women. They're like, women coaching women, that's it. So we're trying to come up with a way to train all these women and working on a grant through the U.S. Embassy. So that's our latest one. But I think that's the coolest part about it is I just kind of sit back, and the women are the ones that ask for it. And I don't think it would work if you try to impose on them, what you think. But yeah, that's, like I said, it's just something that I still kind of get goosebumps about. It was not something I envisioned in my life ever happening, and still being like so alive and well at this point.
That's wonderful. I mean, it really is right back to the origins of it, them being asked what did they want. And it started with, we want to learn more about soccer, and that combination of health and wellness and sport is wonderful. And I know you don't do it for this, but I think the Big Ten Conference recognized your humanitarian contributions for helping develop that.
Yeah, the Big Ten did. And then when I was in my senior year, I was awarded the NCAA Hockey Humanitarian Award, which it's great to be acknowledged for that. But I think even in my acceptance speech and when people were doing like media stuff with it, I was just like, this is more, for the women of the NCAA. And, like I said, I just, try to network here and get them the means to be able to do these great things. And they're the ones doing all the hard work, and the ones that are they want to continue women's empowerment halfway across the world. And, if they ever said, soccer's just not doing it for us anymore, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But I don't foresee that happening now that they have, I think, 3 more villages that asked to join. So we'll see.
I love my Health by Motorbike shirt with Nikambuke on the back. And I'm wondering if anybody was still wanting or was interested in supporting you, how would they be able to do it?
Yeah, so if you just go to www.nikambukesoccer.org, you can see what we're up to, and there's ways to donate. We also have we partnered with this, I guess you could call it another nonprofit organization that was featured on Shark Tank a while ago called Taluma Totes. And we buy fabric from the women that are part of Nikambuke. It's another one of our little side things that we're doing. We buy the fabric from them, and then it goes to Taluma Totes, and they have people with disabilities who put together these totes, these backpacks that are made out of the fabric, and then they sell them, and we get a portion kicked back to us, and then they keep a portion. So you can check out those on our website as well. And then there's options to donate on behalf of someone. You can pay for the coach's salary. You can pay for our commissioner's salary. There's different ways to donate. And then if you want something like a personalized jersey or something, if you just reach out to the email, we can do that. And another thing we do probably once or twice a year is on Twitter. We do some Twitter auctions of signed Nikambuke memorabilia from like former Wisconsin Badgers. In January, we had James White, who was a running back at Wisconsin when I was there, and my neighbor in our apartment. He sent some signed cleats from the Patriots and did a Twitter auction with Bucci Gross from ESPN, and I think we raised like $4,000 or something in an hour. So there's different ways to get your hands on some really cool Nikambuke gear, or put money towards a good cause.
My optometry friends, please think about supporting this. And as you show us your energy, I mean, my face muscles hurt just from smiling and enjoying this. As we wrap up, you are very, very overwhelmed by med school at times. You ride the Peloton to sort of get it all out, do you?
Yeah, so some retail therapy happened in January amidst my board studying, and I bought a Peloton bike. I had a indoor, like a Schwinn bike, and was doing the Peloton app for a while, but I just was like, I go on it every day. So I'm a big Peloton enthusiast. I'm that person that if you're out somewhere, I'm like, do you know I have a Peloton? And then I bond with anyone else who has a Peloton. But that's another thing. And, it goes back to like having really good mentors, I think. Like before I started medical school, one of my mentors at Women's Sports Med Center, Karen Sutton, she's an orthopedic surgeon. She played lacrosse at Duke. And she was like, I said, do you have any advice as like about to be a first year med student who's like going into the unknown? And that's like a big thing in medicine is everything's just like kind of a black hole. Like you don't know, what's coming next, but you don't know what's coming next. Like, you're starting medical school, but you don't really know what you're in for. And you're starting your clinical year, but you don't really know what you're in for. You're starting to apply for residency. And like, it constantly happens and it's stressful. I remember her just saying to me, like, Britt, you're an active person your whole life. You've been built like around time management because you were playing sports and you were being active and you had to be on a training schedule and you had to be on the ice and you had to manage everything. And she's like, take it from me. You want to keep that activity going because it's going to be really good for your mental well-being. Your physical well-being is an obvious one. And then like your time management. Like you're not going to want to have too much time on your hands, but you're going to want to be busy. And that was something that like when I started day one of medical school, I was like working out is something that needs to be part of my daily medicine. And it's like meditative for me. So the Peloton, as of recently too, has been very nice being on fourth year rotations. And I'm, up at 4 something in the morning, getting on the bike before I go into the hospital at 5. And then, I don't come home till 7 or 8, depending on the rotation. So my Peloton's my best friend.
Only people who have been involved in hockey understand what it means to say you have to really be scheduled to deal with ice time. It's not like basketball. Ice time is so precious in so many communities in this country, and people who have not been around it don't understand practices at 6 a.m. or starting at 9:45 at night. So I get what you're talking about. And you talked about your hockey camp for girls that you and your sister do, and you're really willing mentors to young women. And I guess I'd just like you to sort of give this, maybe one of the last points is the importance of giving women a chance to be supported in their passions. You talked about the Nikabuki Soccer League. What can I understand about that? What can you help us understand about that important recognition of what women need to be supported in their endeavors and ambitions?
Yeah, so I think, like I said early on in this podcast, like I've been having a lot of reflection recently, and a lot of it revolves around gearing up to apply for residency, and a very competitive residency in orthopedic surgery, and one that so happens to only have 6% of practicing female attendings being orthopedic surgeons. So there's a lot that goes into that whole process. And like right now I'm working on my personal statement, and it's why do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? And you kind of reflect on different parts of your life. And we've talked a lot about so far today, like, I think about being an athlete and what that taught me in my time at Wisconsin. And then I started thinking about, what I've done in Kenya. And then I started thinking about my time as a research assistant at Hospital for Special Surgery. And there's a common theme between all of those. And it's that I always had really great mentors. And most of them that have been super impactful for me so far have been female mentors. And I just think that and my sister and I talk about this a lot. We didn't have female coaches growing up. Brooke, I don't think she had one female coach her entire career, and I had one for a year or two at the Colonials, who was a former Olympian. But other than that, like we had each other, and we had our older sisters and our mom, and she was, it wasn't like explicitly talked about, but we were just raised as like strong, independent, powerful, empowering women. And then when Brooke and I like got to this point where we could start giving back, especially in hockey, we realized like what an impact it is to be a female hockey player and then be on the ice with other like young females, and just how like different they are, and like how their eyes light up because they're now looking at these girls who accomplished, a pretty high playing level. And that's something that they dream of. And they, they see themselves now in us. Like if you can see it, then you can be it, that whole thing. And so Brooke and I have done our camps, and Brooke's continuing to do it the second week of July in northern New Jersey. She's got Ammerman Hockey School has signups happening now for girls. And that's just something that we've been really, really focused on, is giving back and being mentors for especially young girls, because it's just few and far between, I think, in ice hockey. And then in the medicine world, it's just nice to have, like, I have many male mentors who are very he for she type of people, and they're excellent, and you need them. Like, it's like what you're asking, what can I do? I just think it's recognizing that, like, innately, and this might be my own opinion, but innately, women and men are just different. And, the way that we learn, and there are studies out there, it's just a different way. And it's not that one way is better than the other, but it's just helpful. Like, women have a little bit more stake in emotional intelligence, I think. And so they value, like, positive feedback and some, like, emotional connection with someone. And I think that makes a big difference. And it's just, that is something that has been a common theme, is when someone, like a lot of my mentors, especially in medicine, have taken an interest in me as a human being and not just as a future physician or a future orthopedic surgeon. Like, they want to know, what do you do outside of the hospital? What does your future look like? Where do you want to practice medicine? Where'd you come from? Like, what's your family like? And those things, like, for me personally, I'm like, that means they're invested, and they're really trying to help me. And they know me as the entire person, because if you just talk to me and you only know that I just want to do orthopedic surgery and I'm just a med student, you don't know anything else about me, it's kind of boring. That's, like, kind of vanilla. But, like, I'm also not one to sit there and be like, hi, I founded a nonprofit and I played ice hockey at Wisconsin, and here's my resume. And so when they take a liking, like, it's like we were saying before, it just opens doors to talk about different topics, and it makes conversing with people and connecting with them so much easier. And I think connecting with people is something I really enjoy, and finding common ground. And it's kind of funny now I'm thinking about it. Last week I was in clinic on orthopedic trauma service, and one of the physicians here, I asked him for advice just about, like, what do you write about in your personal statement, like, for your residency? Is it like your medical school one, or you just kind of try to be as bland as possible? Like, I've heard it all. And he had not seen my resume yet. He had just known me from being in the OR and, like, some research interactions. And, like, he knew that I played ice hockey at Wisconsin, but that was kind of the extent of what he knew about my whole being. And he said, like, I prefer to be, like, a little bit more bland, but, one of the ones I remembered from the past years, and I read a lot of personal statements, was, like, someone who took a few years off before medical school and founded a nonprofit overseas, and it influenced why they wanted to go to medical school. And that was, like, that's, like, once in a blue moon. And I just kind of stood there, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, that's basically what I'm writing about. But me being me was like, I'm not just going to voice to him, like, oh, well, I have a nonprofit, because that's not the point of it. Like, there's a whole story that, like, I really shouldn't have a nonprofit, but this is what happened. And then, like, a few minutes goes by, and then a resident asked me, like, what are you thinking about writing? Or he said, what's on your mind? Like, what are you going to write about? And I was like, so I actually do have a nonprofit in Kenya, but then we, like, were able to have, like, this kind of more, like, emotional intelligence conversation about women's empowerment, and how that has led me to now wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon. And so I think now and more recently too, a lot of younger women have been reaching out to me to get mentorship about medical school. And your niece was one of them. And I just, like, really love those conversations. I just think, like, because then I think about myself when I was, 7 years ago, like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but, like, also so scared and needed someone to pick me up. And, like, Lisa Barolette was that kind of person, and all my mentors at HSS still are and were those people to, like, hype me up and be like, you're good enough. Like, this is what, you're going to be okay. You're going to be more than great. And just having those conversations and like seeing, like when I talked to your niece from like the beginning of that conversation to the end of the hour, like she just grew so much and like gained so much confidence. And like, I'm there being like the hype woman, but I'm also like, listen, I lived it. Like, it's going to be okay. And it's just coming full circle. Like someday last week, some mom of a girl that I coached for like an Atlantic District hockey camp summer, like, 10 years ago, coached the girl for a week. Her mom called me like out of the blue, and I was like, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, Courtney just graduated college, and, I'm putting together a video montage for her. And she still talks about you and like how much confidence you gave her over that week, and like staying in touch with her, even though it's like, once a year you guys catch up, and I want you to be in this video montage. And I was just like, me? You want me to be in it? And she's like, yeah, you just have this like aura that like, you helped Courtney so much, and she's going to be so thrilled to like see you on there. Like, I know you're super busy and you guys haven't talked in a while, but like, I know she's just going to like lose it when she sees you, because she still talks about that like week that you helped her. And, you don't realize that. And it's just something that I think I've had great mentors who have now instilled within me that like I should be giving back and I should be mentoring. And I just think it's great to like connect with people and see them grow. And like I said, like, I'm down to be anyone's hype woman for any of this. So if there's any, young females out there who, it doesn't even have to be medicine, if it's something in life, it's global health, women's empowerment, anything like that, like, you can track me down, you can email my nonprofit, like whatever. I'm there to like be a sounding board, because I've had so many of those people in my life.
Yeah, from great mentors come great mentors. And not only that, you are somebody in whom many others see their future selves. You talked about it with your hockey player. My daughter, you mentored, and now my niece, and that's wonderful. And there's so many women that have come into optometry that I'm absolutely positive you've given a bunch of them something to think about as well. I can't thank you enough, Brittany Ammerman, for being a friend, and I'm sure my mom had something to do with us getting connected, and I just can't wait for you to give your positive impact on your patients and watch it all happen. Thanks for being on Sandbox Stories.
Yeah, of course. This was awesome. I loved every second of it.
I can't wait to hear from those of you that have watched. Thanks for attending and enjoying these stories. And until my next Sandbox Story, be great at all you do.